Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a great day. And today we're going to be doing a tier list of every school at max level PvP. This is something every time there's a meta change, people want me to make. This time around, I did something a little different, and I actually really PvP'd a ton on every school. Now, standard disclaimer, keep this in mind. Obviously, this is based on my experiences. I think everyone could play any school right now better than me, probably. Like, if you main a school, you could probably go ham. So don't let this discourage you from doing any certain school at PvP or make you think you have a free match if you play the #1 school on this tier list. But we're definitely going to get started with number 7 right now. What is number 7 in my opinion in terms of with the 1v1 tier list? Now, this is super subject to change, but I actually think that fire is the worst at max PvP right now. There's a couple of issues right now that really hamper fire. One is the fact that the school that they're supposed to counter is slightly OP right now because of a spell doing something it's not intended to do. The easiest matchup in the game should be ice for fire, but right now, because this spell Colossus, it clears a shield and then turns stuff into traps and then hits, and that order makes it so that you can hit with the trap with Colossus. It basically makes it so easy to do like 2,000 damage after shielding on any given moment as an ice. So what the devs have said, and I assume this is coming soon, this spell is not supposed to clear shields, make traps, and then hit. It's probably supposed to hit first and then clear shields and then turn your shields into 65 traps. The difference is you can actually respond as a fire or any other school to those 65 traps, and Colossus itself won't be basically doing 65% times that 585 every time you use it. So one of the big reasons I'm putting fire so low is because the school that it's supposed to mainly counter, which is ice, is just extremely good just off of Colossus right now. The only other thing that I think really holds it back is the fact that there's flat resist and 5-round OTs right now. And you might be wondering what in the world I'm talking about, right? Like, who cares about flat resist? Who cares about 5-round overtime? There's a give and take when it comes to 5-round overtimes in Wizard101 right now. Like, let's take Elephant for example, right? It clears shields, turns them into an overtime, and then hits. But the issue with this spell is, let's say that you hit through one shield and you make a 190 damage overtime and then hit with 560. What happens is there's flat resist that acts on every single round of that 5-round overtime. So something that does 190 damage, like over 5 rounds, it literally just breaks shields, but it does 0 damage because of flat resist. Even with 171% damage on my fire, let's say that it does like, I don't know, let's say that it does like 500 damage over 5 rounds. If I have 100 flat resist, that 500 damage over 5 rounds is basically doing 7 damage a round for 5 rounds. That's how the math adds up. Essentially, overtime spells are very, very powerful. But the problem is when you make overtime spells do, like 5-round overtimes, like Elephant, for example, and especially like FFA, for example, right? These spells get subtracted every single round by flat resist, and it makes PvP much harder on a fire for that alone. Definitely a hard issue to tackle, but I think specifically solving the way ice interacts with fire could definitely make fire so competitive that it wouldn't matter as much. Number 6 on this tier list, currently in my opinion, is Storm. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this, but this is a hard tier list to make because I feel like especially around like the bottom, 4 to 5 schools, like they're very, very even right now. I think the big thing that holds Storm back right now is HP. That's like the main school identity of it. Spells do like 4 to 5k now if you have a buff on them. That's just how damage works now. So in order to like compete against it, you basically do have to heal. Berry Surprise is really a good tool to have. Dark and Stormy is a good tool to have. And while using these does keep you very, very competitive in PvP, these are still heals that are susceptible to one-shot strategies. And the thing about healing is that because it's so bad against one-shot strategies, the other stat that you might want to fall back on is HP, and you kind of can't. The easiest school to one-shot is Storm. I'll say this, I think the meta is still evolving around Storm. I think people are really struggling with finding the balance between hitting and healing, because if you time it right, this is a monstrosity of a school in PvP right now. I'm putting this at number 6 only because of the HP and only because the other schools have some really good things going for them. Some of them are OP, but I would not strike Storm off the list. If you're trying to have fun, if you're trying to rank up, Storm is your guy. You can do it with Storm. I think number 5 is going to come as a big surprise to a lot of people, especially considering I think this is one of my higher ranked wizards. Maybe not at the moment, but at one point, this man's was my highest rank. Now, I'm putting Life at number 5 on the tier list because especially recently, a lot of people pack Contagion. And before Contagion was packed by everybody, spells that hit and overtime healed, especially with the outgoing that Life gets, Spells like this were winning games left, right, and center. It was the easiest thing in the world. Now, this is no longer that viable. You are gonna get Contagion, and the thing about Contagion against spells like this anyways, is the fact that, let's say that you do it, right? Not only are you losing out on the 550 heals, then you also have to either heal through the contagions, or you need to spend 3 more pips with an anti-weakness in order to get rid of the weaknesses that you get put on. It sounds pretty complicated, but essentially, doing an overtime heal makes it so that you almost have to follow it up with 3 pips to counter the weaknesses that are impending. And these are not small weaknesses. These are minus 80 infections. Contagion is crazy. It kind of makes it so that your only solid heal is Satyr. And the thing about Satyr is you can never fully out-heal someone while Satyring unless you're literally jading. This spell does not out-heal Shads. It just doesn't. You don't get the same tempo that you do with hit and overtime heals. Life's in a weird spot. I honestly think the best strat for actually winning as a life is to pack overtime heals, to not pack Satyrs, and to go an offensive route with overtimes, blades for an Oni maybe. You gotta set up a gambit because just spamming hit and heals or not, it doesn't work anymore. But it's definitely in a weird spot compared to where it was even 2 weeks ago. It really goes to show how much the meta evolves. I'm not saying that you can't rank up as a life. You could probably easily rank up as a life. I'm just saying it's gonna be harder now than it used to be. I'm putting Myth at number 4 on this tier list, and I think this is gonna be probably one of the more sus picks. There are gonna be people that tell you that Myth is the best at max PvP. And as much as I respect that opinion, I think that there are certain play styles on Myth where, yes, you can get to max easily, you can get to like Warlord, you can do whatever. It's one of those schools. We've reached that point in the tier list. Any of these schools could probably reach Warlord if you put enough time into it. And the reason why I think Myth is so good is because their damage, resist, and pierce are extremely high, and those are, in my opinion, the most important stats for PvP. When you're looking at stats, Myth is like top of the top right now. The reason why I'm putting it at number 4 is you're essentially like, you know, you're roped into going for a one-shot or the entire game kind of falls apart for you. So yeah, your TC delusions, your TC betrayals, your minotaurs, your regular betrayals, your regular delusions, essentially turning every debuff into a buff of some sort, right? And whenever you're overwhelmed, I guess you could always go for a shatter or go for a strike and try to go for the kill shot. That seems to be the game plan, but the thing is, if you go against opponents that pack enough trap and blade counters, it's extremely hard to win. And if you go against someone that's warded, it is also extremely hard to win. I don't think people realize how few people are myth warding that want to myth ward and will myth ward as time goes on. I think being able to hit through weaknesses is obviously a really big plus, especially given that you have a lot more tankability than fire, which you can hit through shield. And obviously, I think a shield gambit is extremely good to have. I just think compared to the other 3 schools on this tier list, once you start getting set for, myth does fall apart a little bit. All in all, super good school. If you're trying to go for a one-shot strat, you can probably do it pretty easily as a myth. That being said, be careful, because if you're going against someone who's warded, it's a different ball game, and I can promise that to you. I think this is a surprise entry, and honestly, I think this is the one that the most people that are watching will disagree with. I know there are people that will say that Death should not be number 3 on this tier list, but I will go as far as to say I don't even think that Death is number 3 for the wrong reasons. I think they did a phenomenal job with Death this update. There are a lot of things going for it. In my opinion, the reason Death is so good is because it has extremely strong anti-blade and extremely strong anti-heal identity, and that really affects many schools. Like Storm and Life, they are healing right now. It's very good to have a strong anti-heal identity. Doing these contagions and peace serving, incredible. Banshee, an extremely powerful blade counter. If you have 2 blades on your opponent, you can make them into 4 weaknesses on the spot. And the fact that Doom Oni exists is obviously a big deal. You'll start noticing a huge pattern with a big part of this tier list. These shield gambits are an extremely easy option to kill. I would say this is my least favorite part of what Death is right now. I think every other part of Death actually really functions pretty well, but the fact that you can spam these triple shields and set up a Doom Oni whenever you're in trouble is kind of annoying. I feel like it does remove from what could be a really good school. Now, obviously, this does mean that Balance and Ice are above Death, right? But I think that Balance and Ice are above Death because their spells are either not audited or not working as intended. I think there's a real world, especially upcoming with some patches that are coming. There's a real world where I could see Death being the number 1 school in PvP, mainly because Grim is extremely high utility, Doom Oni is an easy way to kill, and the amount of control that you have when someone blades or heals is ungodly. It's absolutely nuts. It's the hardest counter. Free matchups left and right when someone chooses to heal. Free matchups left and right when someone chooses to blade. It's a very fun school. Throw in some riding the scales and you have every counter that you could possibly want. Now, I'm putting putting balance at number 2 on this tier list, not because I think it's like extremely good or anything. It's on this tier list because of this spell. I think everyone knew this was coming. Honestly, I really despise this spell because I think it just takes away from what could be a really good meta for balance. This spell is just spammed in PvP. If you guys are unfamiliar with Scales of Destiny, it scales a free rank, my boy. This spell, if you have above 50% HP, it gives you an ice or life school pip after hitting for a brick. And while the concept is cool, it does, you know, stuff that's off school identity, just like spells like Hydra, spells like Gaze. That part is cool. It's just the fact that you get an extra pip for being above 50%. It's just way too free. It's way too free to spam this. You can literally just amplify or magnify or whatever and spam this. And considering the balance stats, they're pretty good. Like, I'll be honest, like, this is like the only time I'm really going so ham on pointing out the stats. But 48 pierce and 170 damage for a school that can spam a spell that gives them a pip back is a little ridiculous. Obviously, the other strengths that you do get for being balanced is a startling level of control. I mean, if you have Eye of Vigilance and riding the scales, you've basically covered blades, weaknesses, traps, and shields as you need them. And Gaze is an extremely, extremely easy way to get bubble. I think this is one of the easiest schools to play right now. If you're trying to rank up, easiest school to play. The game plan is very, very simple. Just Gaze, Scales, and Aura, and you're good. The only reason I'm putting balance below ice, it's kind of bad against PvE strats. I don't know exactly why, but basically, I think the reason why it's kind of ass is because let's say that someone shield spams like crazy to set up a shield gambit. Well, that counters all of your off-school hits, especially because you're not going to gain pips on them if they're using 0 pip elemental shield, 0 pip spirit shield. And then all they got to do is single blade, single trap, betrayal, delusion, right? You just really build up those buffs in a way that you can gain value. And if they do that, it's actually pretty hard to use your off-school stuff or even mana burn to kill them in time before they can one-shot you. I think shield gambits do give balance a very, very hard time, and that's why I think it's number 2 on this tier list. I think it actually it lacks a little bit of that tankability that helps you against PvE strats like Ice has. Y'all, in my opinion, Ice is easily number 1, and the reason being, it's not just Colossus. I think Colossus does give it an unfair advantage against lower HP schools, but this school is nuts right now. The amount of trap identity it has, it makes everyone Troni extremely powerful. It is by far, in my opinion, the best gambit in the game right now. And if you got to go on the defense, you could always Scion, right? I mean, you could literally shield a lot and you can Scion. It's very, very easy to do. I think these gambits are so good that you can actually one-shot people that are trying to heal against you, and your resist is so high that you don't have to worry as much about getting one-shotted. And when we're talking about the shield pins, you could shield pin to Storm and Death, which I believe are pretty decent schools sometimes, while warding to 2 other schools, which is what I do, and I have so much resist. This is my resist without the 5% extra for my Undauntable Jewel. If you combine high resist and brace, you can literally sit on your resist like crazy. I think they've kind of gone a little overboard with shield pins and ward talents and resist for Ice in general, but I guess it's school identity, and it is very possible to lose. A lot of people pin and ward to Ice, so I guess it kind of makes sense. If they were to make it so that Colossus doesn't use the trap for its own hit, I do think it would be a pretty balanced school. I still think it would be way up on the tier list. Maybe 1, maybe 2. It's just a combination of betrayal, blades into traps, Colossus making your own shields into traps, and not to mention the fact that you can stack betrayals. It just makes Ice absolutely nuts. But yeah, y'all, that's the tier list. I hope you guys either agreed or have a reason enough to disagree that you tell me in the comments. I think this is a super dynamic meta. I think schools that were literally number 1 2 weeks ago are not even close now. That means that the meta is shifting. There could be a different tier list in a month even. So let me know what you guys expect, especially if more, upcoming changes could change this, like tier list. So tell me guys your predictions on where the meta is going. And let me know if you agree or not with this tier list. I look forward to reading all of your comments. Thank you guys for all the love. If somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. I'll see y'all soon. Stay awesome. And yeah.